Hi, it's Matt. This video is all about the 7 factors I use to predict whether or not an online business idea will turn into a profitable, successful online business or fall by the wayside as either just never getting done or just never making any money. So these are the 7 factors I use when I look at considering starting a new business. How did I come up with it? Well, it's a combination of looking at my own successes in business and my own failures, and also looking at other entrepreneurs that I've met in various masterminds and things like that as to why some of them succeed really well, so why some of them fail, because it's not always black and white. Someone might seem to not really know what they're doing and they have this great online business. Someone else that seems to know what to do, but they are just failing again and again. And so this is also what I use when someone comes to me and says, hey Matt, you had online business success. What do you think of this idea? Do you think this will work? These are the 7 factors I go through. So that's how I came about them. Number 1 is all about your personal why. Now, before you switch off the video because you're sick of people beating you over the head about, what's your why is important. Yes, it's important. It's at the top of this list because I'm saying it in context to you. It's not about the business idea. It's about your personal reason for starting the business. So if I'm talking to someone about this, I'm very interested to know, well, why are they actually starting a business? Because if you haven't started yet, if you have, you'll know this, but if you haven't started, business is tough and you are going to come up with against obstacles that you couldn't have ever anticipated, couldn't imagine. The things that you think are going to be hard, yep, probably, but there's going to be all this other stuff as well. And when you get knocked down, and you will, what is your reason, your motivation to get back up and just work it out and get going with the business again? So if you know my backstory, it's because my personal reason was nothing to do with the business model. It was about becoming an entrepreneur, a freedom of lifestyle, so I could be home with my family and be active in parenting more so than I could as a government employee. So that was my reason. So it was separate to the idea. So have a think about that. Do you have a strong enough reason and a strong enough resolve to stick to it when things get hard? Number 2 is about the idea itself. So what's your passion score, I call this? What is your level of excitement about this business? So for example, if someone sells doorknobs, it's a very practical service that they're selling doorknobs, but they may not be particularly excited about it. Everybody needs them, but they're not excited. So whereas if you look at the other end of the spectrum, something that you're personally interested in, that you love talking about. An example, I heard someone explain this, that if you hear someone talking about a particular topic and you get so frustrated just hearing their opinion on it because they're so wrong, that's an indication that's something you're very, very passionate about. So what is it for you? I don't know. And where's your excitement level on this particular idea? That's question number 2, or factor number 2. Now we start looking very specifically at the idea itself. Number 3 is whether or not this is an evergreen marketplace. So this means, is it going to exist always? So it doesn't have to, but I want you to look at this as a spectrum. So at the far end of one end of the spectrum, we're going to have what I call like fidget spinners. So fidget spinners are a passing fad. Right? And you may not even know what they are by the time you're watching this video. Very popular all over, advertised everywhere. You can buy them everywhere. You can't walk through a shopping center without seeing them. But probably in 6 months, they're not going to be anywhere because it's a passing fad, right? Right to the other end of it, something like life coaching, where people are always going to need that level of coaching. Doesn't matter whether it's now or 100 years down the track, that is going to be a valuable service. Or it might be somewhere in between. So an in-between one might be something like teaching people how to do Facebook marketing. Because Facebook's probably not going anywhere fast, but you couldn't say that Facebook is definitely going to be around in 20 years time. We've seen other social media platforms that were going up and up, and then suddenly they were just gone. So that's somewhere in between. It's something that's fairly steady at the moment, but you would have to understand that it may not be around forever. So that's whether or not it's evergreen. So again, you don't have to have complete evergreen, but you want it to be more down that end of the spectrum. And then the next point is whether or not it is an emotional marketplace. So what I'm talking about here is what's the impact this has on people. Using my doorknob example again, this is an idea that probably doesn't excite the consumer that much. Yes, it is a practical solution which they need, but there's not a lot of emotion tied to it. Something that's more emotional product might be, for example, pest control, because you're not really selling, your particular product or the way that you get rid of the pests. You're selling, an emotional, someone is freaking out that their house is filling up with cockroaches or mice or something, and they want to get rid of them, okay? That is an emotional requirement because they're having a freak out about it. Other emotional areas include, the classic markers you may have heard about, wealth building or relationship coaching, things that really transform someone's life. that's the other end of the spectrum about how emotional is it for the consumer. So not for you, but for the actual client. And on that level, when we talk about the impact on them, think back as well to your level of excitement about your impact you want to have on your clients. Are you actually interested in them actually succeeding in whatever it is, or did you just pick it because you thought it might be a good way to profit from? So look at those two sort of in tandem, whether your level of excitement about it and how emotional is the marketplace about it. The next one, factor number 5, is what I call, is this a proven marketplace? So many times people come up with an idea and then they say, oh, I had this great idea, but then I saw someone else is already doing it. And great, that's probably a good start. Now, it's not the only thing you need. When I say a proven market, I don't mean, yes, there's other competition, but have a look at the competition and are they actually succeeding in it at the way that you want to succeed? So if your successful outcome is a profitable online business, then start looking at similar businesses doing the same thing, and are they actually making money from it, or do they just have a following from it, which may not be your outcome? So is it a proven market? Again, there's a spectrum of this. It might be a completely original concept, which is very risky if you're starting this as a first time, because you're probably not the first person to do that. And so the reason you can't find anyone doing it is possibly because they've tried and they've failed, and there were lots of them. So be aware of being the pioneer. The other end of the spectrum is there's loads of people doing it. They're all profiting quite a bit, but it is a very, what people say, a flooded marketplace. But with online business, with our ability to inject our personality into business now, that still allows you to be successful in a niche market where there's a lot of people doing it and a lot of people already succeeding. And the next factor is about you again. In relation to this idea, do you have a guide for this? Do you have a mentor? Do you have something like a roadmap on how you're going to get from where you are to the actual successful outcome? The ultimate level of this would be, okay, I've got this coach, I've got this mentor, they've done exactly what I want to do, they've already done it, they're ahead of me, I want to follow them, I'm already talking to them about how to do it. That's one end. The other end is I'm just going to figure it out on myself, right? So where are you on that spectrum? And the 7th factor is all about what level of support you have in this online business. So this comes down to your friends, your family, your social connections. For example, when you think about your friends, do they think this is a great idea, but they're possibly just humoring you? They don't really believe that you're going to make it work. Are you getting a similar response from your family? Are you in a social group of people who are doing similar things? Or is your social group something that's very, very different from this? So, are you already around people that are going to help you, support you, and are already qualified to really add relevant perspective? One of the more common errors I see, and I made the same mistake when I started online business, was to get, friends and loved ones to, basically get advice on what you're doing. Because if they've never done it, then they don't know what they're talking about. And as well-meaning as it is, it can really steer you in the wrong direction, simply because you want to value their opinion. You want them to help you and show that you're taking their advice on board. But if you don't have that person that's already done what you want to do, that's the person you want to take advice from. Because sometimes in business, and oftentimes in business, what is allowing us to succeed is often very counterintuitive to what we would think as unqualified people just getting started, to actually what works. So there's the 7 factors I use to decide whether or not an idea is worth pursuing. Is it likely to be successful? So look at your reason why, number 1, for doing the business. Number 2, what's your reason for that particular model? What's your level of excitement about it? Number 3, is it evergreen or is it a fad? Number 4, is this an emotional marketplace for the actual clients? Number 5, is it a proven market? Has someone already done this? Is there someone you can role model about this? Which leads on to number 6, is there a guide for you? Is there a roadmap as to how to take you from where you are to where you want to go? And the last one is, what's your level of support for this that's actually going to help you achieve your goal of whatever that means as a successful online business? So if you're thinking of starting an online business, go through that activity, look at those 7 factors, and you may save yourself a lot of time. You may make some refinements to your idea in terms of making sure that you succeed in building a profitable online business.